Awesome. So, going to go into the next question. Only a couple of questions left. So, is it possible for local merchants, vendors, and remittance agents to sell ETN for their local fiat in arrangement with a liquidity partner through some sort of specialised exchange rep account?
In short, the answer is yes. Does depend slightly on local regulations. Not all countries. That's not legal everywhere in the world, so they would need to seek advice. The partners that we're looking at, a lot of them have got agent networks. Mobile operators themselves often have, or nearly always in the areas we're looking at, have agent networks, and we're looking to get those agents into a remittance market. But every country is different, so that there's local regulations to overcome. Sometimes licenses are required, and we're working with the mobile operators to procure that where required. But in short, we have a slightly different version to them having to have an exchange as a liquidity provider. And again, it's part of this ecosystem that I talk about. These guys that are local agents, more often than not, they're not banked themselves, or they're underbanked, and it might not be that easy for them to work with an exchange. But what you've got is, if these people are doing top-ups this is what a lot of people, their business is to sell mobile top-ups, and these are the agents that we have access to through the mobile virtual network operators and network operators. But if you imagine, smartphone ownership is still in a lot of places, at least, smartphone ownership is running at 30-40%. So there's still 60% that, or even 70%, are feature phones. So these don't, you know what I mean by a feature phone. It's not a smartphone. It's a slightly older technology set, slightly cheaper technology set. So for $20 or even $15, you get yourself a feature phone, and this is quite often what people are using. So we're obviously after the smartphone users, and there are plenty of them. There's 350 million smartphone users in the unbanked world, or whatever. It's a huge number. So we're not short of smartphone users, but don't forget those feature phone users. So let me explain what we got here that's exciting. So this chap, the agent, he takes cash for feature phone top-up and for smartphone top-up, and he sells airtime and data, and then he has to get that cash to the network operator. But that cash getting to the network operator, depending on how remote he is and how the process and the system works, sometimes they have one supervisor that manages a number of agents, and they pick up the cash and they go and drop it in the bank. But sometimes it's much more convoluted than that. So you've got lots of villages that have a person to report to, and those people report to another location, and that person then moves to one more thing. So you've got this cash moving along a pipeline towards the mobile network operator. The maximum cost we've seen of cash transactions, which was in South America, was 30%. So it cost them $3 in every $10 that was collected for that pipeline to operate before they got it into their hands as money. So if you imagine, if that agent could pay in a digital way and cut the cost of cash transfer, the mobile operator would be very happy, right? So if he can use ETN to pay for airtime and data to the mobile operator, so this is the agent themselves, not the end user, the agent, if he can use ETN, then suddenly the operator is happy, and the cash cost has gone down. So now what you've got is, you've got a chap that's now collecting cash from people, and he is using ETN from the smartphone guys. So the smartphone guys bring in their ETN, but there's nothing to stop this guy now saying, right, I really want more ETN, because if I had ETN, I could pay my bill in ETN, and the mobile operator might give me another bit of a bonus. So this is all subject to negotiation. But if it costs them 30% to do the cash transactions, then actually, if they offered an extra 5% bonus in airtime and data to the agent, they'd be way up on the deal. And sometimes that cash cost is less than that. I mean, so probably the lowest it's going to be is 7%, and the highest it's going to be is 30%. But that still gives you the ability to incentivize to pay an ETN. So if he now wants to get hold of ETN, and he's got cash from the feature phone people, he can actually start saying, oh, I will sell you some ETN to people, And people could say, I'd like to buy ETN because actually when I pay to my operator directly, I get a discount, or I want to top up with you in the future and I can do it remotely because they don't need to go to the agent now to do it. They can do it remotely. So there are reasons that people could top up. There's reasons to use ETN and there's reasons to introduce cash. And that cash then has, the guy is happy because he's got his cash and he can start doing remittance transactions and all sorts, but no one's had to go to an exchange because the liquidity is being injected by us into the community. The community are focusing around an agent, so they're going to the agent with their ETN. The ETN is being pumped back to the mobile operator in terms of giving back some remittance, some airtime, and then the operator takes a percentage of that and cashes it via an exchange. But they also go, well, we want to grow the market. So we're helping them grow the market with viral growth, but they're also saying, well, let's incentivize with ETN. So the more ETN that goes out into the community, the more ETN there is for the guy to use for buying and selling. And they haven't had to have exchange accounts. So this sort of ecosystem that we're developing is all about trying to do exactly that, empower people to be entrepreneurial. And if you see these people, there are Bitcoin exchanges, in Kenya, and you see people who are taking Bitcoin and they're doing it all on their phones, but it's the clunkiest thing you've ever seen. And we take that clunkiness away and turn, and the trust. There's an awful lot of trust that goes on there as well. Take the trust part out, take the clunkiness out, and make it all instant, and suddenly you've got something really exciting. So, yeah, we've got concepts for this. None of those are in place yet, but they're coming. Yeah. So it's a long answer again.
I think it's one of those things as well that we kind of take for granted in the Western world, that we can do everything from the comfort of our own living rooms, our own homes, or a very short walk.
Yeah.
Whereas in these remote areas, sometimes you're walking about 20 miles just to top up your phone.
Yeah, it's true.
And then obviously being capped on where you have internet access and things like that.
Yeah.
So actually having that way to remove the need of that gives them more time in the day, and yeah, it is something that we do take for granted in the Western world.
Most certainly, yeah. Digital payments, you don't think anything of it, do you? Whereas this is something that's very new for a lot of people in the world. Huge number of people.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome stuff. So moving into the last question now, and it's about scalability. So what are the problems you've already faced in terms of scalability? How have you addressed those problems, and what scaling problems do you anticipate may come, and how do you plan to mitigate from them?
Okay, good question. We know that we have a scaling problem coming. We don't have it currently, but we know it's coming. We're dealing with people that have got tens of millions of users that they want to introduce us to. And as they start to be seen to be a success, we are sure we'll open doors to the people that have even bigger user numbers. It's much easier to open the doors of the smaller companies first, believe it or not. Some of these, I mean, even 2 million users might be considered a small company, but from us, we'd be very happy to have lots of MVNOs with 2 million users. So from our perspective, we know we'll start having real huge numbers of users. Now, at the moment, our system stands up. The instant payment system obviously overcomes any delay on the blockchain, so there's no big problem there. But actually, there's two things. So first, at the moment, the way our system works at the moment is we have a physical, private key pair for every single user. We're a custodial wallet provider, and it means that we have a huge infrastructure back end to provide 2 million plus wallets for our users. And every time you say, I'd like to know my balance, it physically goes off. It spins up that wallet, opens the wallet. There's an incredible security mechanism that takes place at the back end that I won't describe in too much detail, but this then opens that wallet, uses our RPC system to interrogate the wallet and say, any transactions come in, no, okay, off it goes, and reports it all back to a central database. So we've got a centralized system that's using our traditional wallet system that you can see in GitHub. Now, it all works as you've seen, but in terms of scaling it to 10 times, 20 times, 50 times what we've got now, the infrastructure cost will be absolutely enormous. We pay Amazon at the moment probably $100,000 a month for the infrastructure that we have. And if we literally times that by 20, times it by 30, the economics don't work out. But we have a system being built right now. We've tested it. It works really well. It's a centralized system of virtualized wallets that enables us to do two things. First, it downscales some of our infrastructure costs. So we have much more powerful. At the moment we've got literally thousands of fairly low power instances, as they're called on Amazon's network. So these are little servers. So we are, instead of having those for thousands of wallet operations, we then have a huge wallet operating centralized system. In fact, we're going to have 3 very powerful box that can handle hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, millions of transactions in one place. So we virtualize the wallet system rather than having actual physical wallets running on Linux that is being used at the moment. So it'll make our wallet system much better from an infrastructure and growth point of view. But there's another part to it that's really good. At the moment, if I do an instant payment to you, you know it's instant payment notification, right? So you're fine with that. You're a vendor. I've bought a digital download. You know that Electroneum is going to make sure the ETN gets to you. So instant payment notification is the first step towards instant payments. So instant payment notification is what you get from Visa, from MasterCard. You walk into a shop, you tap your card, you walk out with the goods. But they haven't got the money yet. That comes through later. Well, once we've got the virtualized system in place, what that actually means is that the money it's not money. The ETN will instantly arrive with you. So instead of it being an instant payment notification, it truly is an instant payment. So you're able to spend it immediately. Now, when you think about that from a vendor point of view, it doesn't really make much difference. If the vendor gets their ETN 4 hours later, it really doesn't matter that much. But where it starts to become really important is when we look at what we're launching next year with our remittance system. This is where it gets super important, right? So with remittance, if you imagine you've got agent A, agent B, customer 1, customer 2. So customer 1 wants to send customer 2 some value. So they're going to use ETN to send value across, whether it's US dollar value or whatever it is. So he walks in with his US dollars into agent A, and he says, I'd like to buy some ETN to do a remittance payment. At the moment, what you've got is you've got an instant payment notification. So he knows it's on the way, but it takes, let's say it takes an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours to get to him. Then he wants to send it to his friend or his family member across the world. So instantly they know it's on the way, but it takes some time to arrive. And then that person wants to convert that ETN into dollars by selling it to an agent, which then again, in fact, that one would work because he'd get an instant notification and hand over the dollars. But you've got these 2 delays, whereas what you really want is instant. And that's coming Q1 2019. And that makes our remittance system absolutely unbelievable, because what we've got then, bearing in mind that the transfer system at the moment is super cheap, like 1 cent to send $100,000 or whatever, it's peanuts. What you've got here is actually, because it's within the virtualized wallet system, whatever charge we apply, which initially certainly is going to be 0. So you're going to be able to make these payments throughout the system at 0 cost. So the remittance system suddenly becomes the cheapest remittance system there is in the world, which then won't end up being free for the users. What it means is that the agents, again, have this entrepreneurial ability to start earning another revenue stream, which then incentivizes them to become agents in the first place, because they can now earn money by buying and selling ETN. Okay. So we've thought about all this, thought about scale, and this model scales us up to 200 million users plus. So at the moment we could probably scale to 20 million users, but it would have large associated costs. But as of Q1 2019, we will have a system that scales to 200 million plus active users and is affordable. Probably costs more than we're running now, but it's not going to be linear.
Yeah. So I just want to go into a little bit more about obviously the type of like servers and stuff that you'll be using. So you'll be using a very powerful physical server, but using that as a virtualized server.
Well, all of our servers are virtualized servers. We use Amazon's AWS system.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much you know about it, but it's a really cool system. Anybody who hosts and doesn't use Amazon's system needs to take a look at it. But what they do, I'm not entirely too sure why, but the naming conventions in Amazon is what scares people. So, for instance, their data storage system, which you might just call maybe a network storage system or something, they call S3 buckets. Who knows why, but for some reason they do. And so there's weird naming conventions within it. So, but they have some really cool features. So all of their servers are called instances, and they have good reasons to do this. I mean, Amazon have been a fantastic partner to us, so I don't think this is me being rude about Amazon in any way. I love them. But so they have instances are servers, and those you can spec the power. So they're all virtualized already. So they have virtual CPU, virtual RAM, virtual drive space. So but you can choose how much power you want. And at the moment, what we want is low-powered machines, but loads of them, like crazy amounts. Sometimes we've spun up 3,000-4,000 instances are spun up. I mean, these things grow and shrink automatically as well. You can do really cool things on Amazon where you have elastic groups. So it looks at how much load there is on them and says we're going to need more, and it automatically starts creating it. So it spins up more instances. So our system says, there's a huge demand on wallets at the moment. Okay, well, how many wallet servers have we got? Well, we've got 300. How many incoming servers have we got? We've got incoming servers that are constantly checking for when you're saying, okay, have I got any transactions in? And we've got outbound servers that are, so when people are sending ETN to an offline wallet or to an exchange, we've got outbound servers that do that. So we've got lots and lots of different things, but they spin up and they shrink down. We've got load balancers doing all sorts of different things, and it's a very, very complicated architecture, in fact.
Yeah.
But by taking away these thousands of small servers and creating a virtualized wallet system in one place, and I say in one place, but it's actually replicated. We've actually got 3 of them. So we've got one in Japan, one in the United States, and one in Ireland. That's how our infrastructure works at the moment. And by dividing it up amongst Amazon's servers, you've got latency reduction. So people in Southeast Asia are going off to Japan, people in the US are going to the US, etc. So our infrastructure is quite funky. But yeah, this system would mean that instead of paying $300 a month or whatever for smaller numbers of servers, you'd be paying tens of thousands of dollars for a much more powerful beast. But there's some architecture changes to the database system, and there's quite a few things coming. But that was all designed probably 6 months ago, I suppose. We knew this problem was going to arise in the future, and we just knew that we just had to make sure that we'd built the system before the huge user numbers came. And so the guys have already engineered it. They're already working on it. We've tested an awful lot of the individual components within our test environment, and they're now building the system to go live in Q1 2019. So
fantastic. It actually really excites me that you're using virtualized systems. Virtualized networks are becoming so popular now. My college uses it to do all of the instances for every single computer that's on campus. And what makes virtualization so good is that built-in redundancy. If one of them goes down, the other virtualized network is literally there, and because it's mimicking the same thing, you don't lose anything. You've got that built-in redundancy.
Oh, there's one other thing that the new system brings as well, which we have a constant worry. We've obviously got the offline cold storage system that we launched right at the same time as we did the ICO live. Although as soon as the blockchain went live, we had a cold storage system available. You and I and our guys in the team, and we're crypto people. We understand the dangers of crypto. We understand the limitations, etc. So cold storage to you and I is probably a norm. From my personal perspective, that's how I would always store crypto. And what we found is that a lot of our users, nay, a majority of our users, don't. So what they do is they just leave it within our custodial wallet system. Now we've partnered with HackerOne, so we have some of the top people in the world looking at our security. They've worked with the likes of the US Department of Defense, etc. So we were engaged with the top people in this game. But don't forget that NASA's been hacked, the CIA's been hacked. You know, people get hacked, and that is a constant source of worry. So at the moment, that custodial wallet system of ours would be tremendously difficult to hack. But let's not forget that people get hacked. So it would be an absolute nightmare to hack because of the nature of the system and because of the security we've got in place. But if we look at our thing, when I said earlier that there's $150 million worth of ETN sitting in our system, I think that's relative. It might be even more than that. So it's a huge amount of ETN that sits in our system that people are just trusting into their mobile wallet. Now, ideally, they will put some of that in cold storage, but they haven't, for whatever their own reasons are. Maybe it's a little bit too complicated for them. Maybe they're too scared to do that, to be fair. You know, oh, crikey, I'm entrusting it to a piece of paper.
Yeah.
I'm nervous about it. What if I lose a piece of paper, etc. So part of what we've engineered into what's coming is, because we've realized that people are not using the system as we perhaps predicted they would, we are going to de-risk a lot of that as well. Our new architecture has cold storage built into it. So we cold storage the majority of people's funds, not on an individual basis, but because it's a virtualized system, it means that we can manage it on a global system. So we can say, right, actually in daily use, 5% of the stored funds are in daily use, or whatever it is. It will be analyzed, of course, and changed on a daily basis. But we'll say X% is in use on a daily basis. A spike equates to 12% of funds being used, or whatever. But what that means is that we could safely say 80%, for instance, could be entered into a cold storage system. Yeah. We've all got these things called YubiKeys that we use to lock the cryptocurrency. So we've got multi-sig wallets and YubiKeys for everything to do with crypto. And that system is going to be brought in for unlocking the cold storage. So if there's a spike in traffic, we can get multiple users. So at the moment we have 3 out of 8, but it could be more. So we've got 8 holders, and at least 3 of them need to present a YubiKey within the system and their own passcode to unlock the crypto. So effectively what it means is that we can move money in and out of cold storage, and then if somebody hacked into the system, there's nothing they could do to actually get that money moved across. And even if you manage to put a gun to 3 people's heads and say put your YubiKey in, all that does is move the ETN into the system. It doesn't give that user can't then transfer it somewhere. All it does is put it into the system. So it suddenly makes the system much more secure. And as much as I say much more secure, I mean, our system has stood up really, really well. Like I say, we've got HackerOne on, so I don't want people to start panicking and going, oh my gosh. We are protecting that ETN to the best of our ability and to the best of HackerOne's ability, and they are a top company. So I don't want people to panic about this. But at the background, I've also got to think pragmatically, and I've got to think, okay, what if the worst scenario happens? So what we're doing is we're engineering a system to give even more security to people's ETN than we've got now. And they've got a lot now, so I don't want people to panic.
That's really good, because why have every single piece of ETN on the system when you don't need to? Exactly
that. And then if there was a calamitous, I mean, I've said 80%. It might be 90%. You know, I think Coinbase is something like 95% is in cold storage or something, because that's how it works out. Everybody's percentage is going to be different, and until we analyze the use, we won't know what that percentage is. But I guess at 80 it might be more. But whatever it is that we store, that would then mean you'd globalize that. So if there was a globalized attack, you'd say, okay, you'd fix whatever the problem was. We'd work with, again, the top people. You'd fix whatever the problem was, and you'd say, I'm terribly sorry, everybody, but you've lost 5% or 10%, but most of it was protected. So I'd much rather, I'd feel much safer having a corporate protection from us than relying on individual protection, because it's really upsetting when you get somebody who's lost something. Touch wood, we haven't so far, but you know, I've seen it in other cryptos and I've seen it in other exchanges.
But that is something that a lot of people take away from this as a really huge positive, that, oh, my ETN's in cold storage by default, technically. There's only some on the system for transacting.
Yeah.
But if you've got large holders that are used to using paper wallets, maybe they don't want to keep it on paper anymore. Yep. They have that
bit of peace of mind.
That peace of mind that actually their funds are already in cold storage.
And of course, once again, this was something that was the first time we heard about people's requirement for this was, of course, the same thing. when we're dealing with legal teams of corporates. They'd heard the phrase, how much of it is in cold storage? And we sort of said, well, actually, that'll be up to you to manage your cold storage. Of course, they don't know anything about managing cold storage. So, we're crypto experts. Well, we're going to manage the cold storage for them. So it makes more sense.
Perfect.